Okay, so before we get into my questions, which I'm very excited to ask you about in chemistry, I want to ask you briefly about. I want to, to tell the viewers. So the reason why. So first of all, you're well known in the bodybuilding world, and I don't. Maybe you can tell us. So I know you were a kickboxer. You've talked about this in other interviews. You injured your ankle. You had difficulties with that. You were already in the gym, so you started. Thought one day you could compete, and it would
Yeah,
be fun for you, and so you started competing and you became of some some status in terms of competing. I'm not a bodybuilder myself, but I know you won some competition.
yeah.
And how did you get into coaching and consulting and eventually into making, so also for the viewers to know, Dean has his own supplement line in association with supplement, what's it called?
Supplement needs.
Supplement needs, yeah. So how did you get into that field? How did that transform from you competing,
Uh,
advising, and formulating?
I always say it, my wife Morgan is the reason why. So when I first met Morgan in 2015, when we were properly then living together, um, she just said to me, like, at that time, I wasn't really active on social media or speaking about things. But if someone spoke to me in the gym and asked me questions about health or bodybuilding or, you know, pharmaceutical use, I'd engage them in conversation and, we'd have a discussion on it. I should just thought it was just silly that I wasn't getting more out there and, speaking more on social media. And so I guess what sort of happened was I was getting coached by a guy in the UK that most people know, Bodybuilding, Jordan Peters,
Mm.
and he had a website trained by JP with a forum, and I just started. I don't be on any of the internet forums for bodybuilding. I've said it on other podcasts. I just got tired of just seeing a lot of BS and just incorrect science that was leading people wrong. And I guess that was more so where I started to feel that what I knew would help keep people healthy when there weren't other, I guess, educators speaking up with their background in either medicine or pharmaceutical chemistry.
Mm.
And I guess at that point, I started challenging belief systems within bodybuilding surrounding how we address health within, Jordan's forum, where people started to actually go, what you're actually saying makes sense. I don't know why we've been listening to the other form of thinking all this time. And I guess from there just became a point of call that people then started to see that sort of established expertise. And I didn't always plan on having this sort of consulting service for bodybuilders that you can consult with me surrounding, I guess, functional medicine and applying that to bodybuilding. It just more so came from, I guess, a continuous strive to learn. And like we said to start, it's all about sort of making sure we have optimal health, but also understanding the root causes of disease that happens from anabolic steroid use. Because again, when we look on forums, for example, liver health, we know obviously the 70 and alpha alkylated orals cause liver toxicity. All that was ever being said was, oh, just take milk thistle when you take your oral steroid, or, only take orals for 4 or 6 weeks, or only take orals at the end of your steroid cycle. No one ever thought, right, when you take an oral steroid, it causes changes in the hepatocytes that can cause them functionality changes to our gallbladder and how we produce bile. That bile can lose its viscosity and cause cholestasis, where it blocks the bile ducts and backflow to the liver cells, killing them.
Yeah.
And so no one was ever educating bodybuilders that okay, yeah, taking milk thistle might help. It might help some of the changes in the CYP enzymes, but fundamentally, what's driving the disease process is poor bile flow, cholestasis. Why aren't we then utilizing supplementation or dietary changes that again corrects that problem so that we don't actually end up with liver cell death?
So this is an interesting example you bring up. So I've been following the bodybuilding forum since 2003 or 2 because I was always interested in anabolic steroids, but I was mostly interested in strength. But because of the bodybuilders are the one who talk about drugs, so
Yeah,
I noticed people began using Tadka in around 2000 and maybe 8 or 7.
yeah, it was towards the end of the 2000 region.
Yeah, but it wasn't that late. So it wasn't people were already, and TUDCA, for those that don't know, is sort of like the effect it has is this bile flow issue of cholestasis. And TUDCA is a relative of UDCA, which is the only FDA-approved treatment for cirrhosis of the liver.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The bile, you bring up an important point, was people were taking milk thiazole, which seems to have a hormetic stress, a biphasic stress, in which in the lower range, it causes a reaction in the body that, I think it must upregulate NRF2 and downregulate, NF-kappa B and these kind of inflammatory
process. Yeah.
But it's not dealing with the actual functional problem of the bile and all that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it was even the same when we look at lipid changes, how anabolic steroids change lipid panels. No one was, educating that, when you have an unfavorable or a super physiological level of androgens, within the liver, you make hepatic lipase, which is an enzyme that breaks down HDL. When you have super physiological levels of testosterone, that destroys hepatic lipase. So you're destroying the enzyme. It increases the amount of hepatic lipase, which then destroys the amount of HDL that you're making. So no matter what you try to do to correct low HDL at super physiological level of testosterone or other androgens, it's a battle that you're never going to win, because it's an artifact of that androgen receptor stimulation.
I've never looked into the process by which the HDL is reduced, so I'm glad.
Yeah, it's through hepatic lipase reduction, and we see it very clinically with Anavar is the easiest example, or through I guess there's some research papers with Dianabol also, but it's purely, and you get an increase due to androgen receptor activation causing increases in hepatic lipase, and that destroys your HDL. So no matter how many, if we look at forums and they're sort of pushing citrus bergamot, pantethine, all these sort of precursors that we know help increase HDL production, it's sort of an uphill battle because you're destroying it as you're making it. So all you can do there in that regard is coach someone that what you need to do in that case is preserve HDL function, and also make sure that when the liver is producing LDL molecules, that it's actually making, large buoyant LDL molecules as opposed to intermediate or very low density LDL molecules.
In effect, by your diet, by reducing.
Exactly, yeah, by the diet, and obviously antioxidant content of the diet, so we don't end up with, I guess, foam cell production in our arteries. I started bringing this sort of functional side to bodybuilding and educating people that, it's not just about when you develop high blood pressure, take a blood pressure medication. Develop cholesterol issues from AS, take Lipitor, take a statin to lower your LDL production. It was more so, telling them exactly why the problem is happening, what we can sort of do at the root of the problem to address it, and if needs be, then intervene with a pharmaceutical therapy.
Actually, I really liked your discussion with Fuad. I'm sure most of the people watching this video will have seen your discussion with Fuad. Fuad Abiel has a podcast that you went on in which he asked you originally about blood pressure issues, and you described to him the manner in which blood pressure raises, which was very accurate. Actually, it's very interesting, historical side note. Fuad and me had a little antagonism online a year or so ago because his coach, Dante Trudel, had given him a supplement stack for high blood pressure. But he also sent him to the doctor. He sent him to the doctor also. Apparently, Fuad had high blood pressure, and so he needed to go. But the supplements, Fuad made a video about them, and many of them had no relation to hypertension. There's no evidence of them affecting hypertension. So I made a comment on that. Fuad got very upset with me. But the point is, you had a very good analysis of the cause. If anyone wants to see, that was a really great discussion.